Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we are doing a Perfumers portfolio video and we're going to do it on a controversial topic, or a controversial man, I should say, and that is François Demachy. Now, this video I was kind of holding off on. You know, he just recently left Dior, whether he was, pushed out the door, whether he left willingly, is a conversation topic that we have discussed for many hours on, Eugene's stream and FragCom in general. What makes the topic so interesting and lively, if you will, is because just before he left, literally, I think we're talking months before he left, Dior released a documentary on him, talking about how, what a fantastic perfumer he is, and, how he can source the best materials, and on and on and on. And so it's a little bit strange that all of a sudden he left, and, I'm going to say some things that are maybe not the nicest thing to say about a perfumer, but I do wish him in well health. I hope he didn't leave because of ill health. I hope he is healthy, and, I hope he's enjoying his retirement. He's been at it since the 1980s, from my understanding, and I'm going to show you some of the François Demachy fragrances in my collection. And we're going to start with a couple of his biggest hits, let's say. Some of the things that he's successful in doing, okay? So the first one we're going to do is my scent of the day. And this is kind of what prompted this video, is because I wore this and I said, you know what? Let's highlight François Demachy's work. It's not all bad, okay? And that is Dior Homme Intense. Now, this... No, am I holding the Parfum? Jesus. Let's try this again, shall we? Round two. Dior Homme Intense. There you go. Okay, so you'll notice that this is the older style bottle. It doesn't have the Dior Homme Intense writing right here. It is batch code 3Q04, so that means that this is a 2013 bottle. And this is one of my favorite Iris fragrances. It's just, this is something that he does really well. The thing that people, let's do a fresh spray. The atomizer on these Diors is insane. So the thing that perfume heads like myself give François Demachy a hard time for, and rightfully so, is that he is very good at taking someone's work, and he's very good at doing reformulations, probably cost savings. Brands love cost savings. He's very good at, love this fragrance. He's very good at doing flankers, okay? And that's what Dior has literally survived on for the last decade, is flankers. This is a flanker of Dior Homme, which he did not create. Jacques Polge created Dior Homme. So he took Dior Homme, which is one of my favorite Iris fragrances of all time. I have a silver stem bottle. I didn't bring it out because I didn't want this video to be, 12 hours long or anything. And he created this, Dior Homme Intense. And this is one of the most popular perfumes for men on the designer side. In fact, Parfumo says that it's ranked in the top 3. So you get the idea. Very popular fragrance, and rightly so. It's accessible. The iris in this gives this, lipstick makeup bag accord, which has been talked about ad nauseum. I won't go into that into detail. It is a little bit sweet, but not too sweet, where someone like me who doesn't like sweet fragrances will stay away. I love this fragrance. I love wearing it. It is, now again, this is the older version. The newer one is not as good, but it's still... Even to this day, it's a good composition. In fact, I heard people like Zhao say that he prefers the newer one because it tones some of the heaviness of this fragrance down. This is a very heavy fragrance, which I actually like, especially for the winter. when the original Dior Homme came out in 2005, it was, you know, known as being metrosexual, right, for a man's fragrance, because it had that irisy, makeup-y, you know, type accord. Over the years, I think people's noses have come to accept this. This is known as the 2011 version. There is a 2007 version. I've never compared the versions, but I have been told that the older stuff and the newer stuff is very similar, albeit the newer stuff is, it is definitely reformulated, but it's a good reformulation. So that is my scent of the day, Dior Homme Intense. And then in 2014, he created what has all of a sudden become a hit in the fragrance world. It's been a little inaccessible to people like me in the United States because it's not issued in the United States. It's only issued overseas, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a fragrance called Dior Homme Parfum, the one I tried to show you earlier when I was showing you the Intense. Or I meant to show you the Intense, and I showed you this one. This is the vintage 75 ml bottle. You can see the batch code right down there on the bottom left-hand side of the bottle. This is a 2017 bottle. They have since, so this is 7Q02. They've since reformulated this and put it in the 100 ml. So you get 100 ml for the same price as they were selling the 75 ml for. This basically keeps that Florentine iris, and it adds this sandalwood accord. What makes the intense is that ambrette seed. There's this ambrette seed note that is very beautiful. Ambrette seed apparently is an expensive note. It's a replacement for musk and cedar in the Intense, okay? The Parfum adds a beautiful sandalwood note, which he is very good at. You know, I'll show you a sandalwood fragrance coming up that he's very popularly known for helping Jacques Polge make, but that's later on in the video. And they've added this beautiful leather note in the Parfum. So this is a little bit more, it's a little harder to wear, I would say. If you're not as into fragrances, the Intense might be a little bit more accessible. The Parfum amps that leather up, and there's a little bit of dirtiness in the Parfum. It almost smells like, you know, there's maybe a touch of civet or something like that, you know. That really amps up the leathery dirtiness in the Parfum. And so I love the Parfum. I've never compared the 100 ml reformulation to this 75 ml bottle, but I do hear that, again, it's a good reformulation. It's just very hard to get. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, the bros switched from Aventus to Dior Homme Parfum, and this is what they all want to wear. I don't know how it happened. I don't know how the switch flipped, you could say, but all of a sudden it did happen. And everyone wants this fragrance, and I've seen some insane prices, especially for the vintage 75 ml bottles. But sometimes that's just how it goes. I mean, sometimes the tide turns, and you know, people who are more casually into perfume just go read about things or hear things, and all of a sudden Aventus is the thing, or Dior Homme Parfum is the thing. So again, that's part of, I wanted to start with that because it's my scent of the day. We'll stick to the trend, but it also shows some of the good and bad of Demachy. The good is to be able to create something for Dior that was a huge seller, right? Top 3 in men's perfume, according to Parfumo.net. Now, I don't think that's in sales, but that's in popularity. And Dior Homme Parfum, it's in the top 5 is what it says. So again, as far as designers go, he is able to create mass appealing, easy to wear, generally accepted perfume. And that's probably his brief from Dior. So we give him a hard time as perfume lovers, but he's probably doing what his masters want him to do. And that is create perfume that sells to the masses. Forget the 1% of people like me. You know, they're going after the money. It's all about money for LVMH. And so he kind of hit the nail on the head on some of these, and some of the other ones I'll show you here in a little bit. But before we do that, We are going to go back in time a bit. Sorry, I thought I was all ready, but apparently I'm not. Okay, here we go. Let's go back in time. We're going to go to the house of Ungaro. Now, there's some, again, controversy with this fragrance because the two places that I look show different perfumers. Okay, so Fragrantica shows Jacques Polge, and Parfumo shows François Demachy. Now, they work together on some Chanel fragrances coming up later in the video. But this is Ungaro pour l'Homme 2. Okay? This is the vintage Parfums Ungaro edition before they were purchased. They were purchased by a bigger house at some point. And this is a very musky fragrance. It was released in 1992. It's now completely discontinued. Even the reformulated bottles are. So it starts off very Chanel-esque, if you will, okay? And in 1992, I'm pretty sure François Demachy and Jacques Polge were still working together for Chanel. It was only a few years after Ēgoïste came out. And so this opens up with this musky lavender citrus type smell, okay? There's neroli, there's orange, there's lemon, there's bergamot, there's coriander, there's basil, and there's lavender. And then as it starts to dry, you get a little bit of this powdery floral accord. There is some jasmine and rose. And then the base is where this really sets this fragrance apart from just normal citrus musky fragrances, some spicy citrus musky fragrances. And that's that there's a really interesting, dirty patchouli leather civet thing going on in the base. The top smells like a Chanel. It almost smells like it has a little bit of that Chanel aldehydic sparkle. Even though no aldehydes are listed, it gives off that impression, if you will. And that's why I think there's a little bit of a controversy only showing Jacques Polge or only showing François Demachy. If they were still working together at Chanel and they worked together to create this composition for Ungaro, they should both be credited, not one on one, fragrance website and another on another. So I'm showing this here, but if anyone knows the true story behind this, let me know. This is I love wearing this fragrance in the spring. This is like a spring summer scent to me. Even though it has a little bit of civet, it doesn't have that dirty civet that I would probably only wear more in colder weather. Like Koros, I usually only wear in colder weather. This has this beautiful citrus musk thing going that I think I could easily pull off. I easily pull this off in spring and summer. And so Ungaro 2, if you can find a vintage, very interesting composition. This is the kind of perfume that they just used to release to the masses back then. This kind of perfumery is long dead. Long dead. But I absolutely love it, and I'm so happy to have a bottle of that. But again, there's some controversy, if you will. And then I'm going to show you a couple decants Rich Mitch sent me. One is Ombre Nuit, and Ombre Nuit really blew me away. I would love to have a bottle of this stuff. This is basically this beautiful citrusy rose with this amazing ambergris base. One of the best ambergris fragrances I think I've ever smelled. I love the ambergris in this perfume. Completely was not expecting that at all. Because if you look on Fragrantica, this came out in 2009, so I think this came out right as François Demachy was becoming the in-house perfumer for Dior. There's two listings on Fragrantica. One shows François Demachy as the perfumer, and one doesn't. So I'm not 100% sure if he was the original perfumer in 2009 when it first came out. But of course, they then gave him credit as he reformulated it in 2018, which I'm not a big fan of. That's why you're not going to see regular Fahrenheit on here. You didn't see the original Dior Homme from 2005. I can't give him credit for a reformulation. That's not fair. He can only get credit for what he created. And I'm not 100% sure. If anyone knows the story behind Ombre Nuit, let me know in the comments. But if you want a, you know, if you want to smell some amazing ambergris in the base, check out this fragrance. I've only given it one spray, worn it to bed. I'm going to give it a full wear and do a first impression video at some point. Another one is Patchouli Imperial. I've never given this a full wear either, but these are in the, by the way, these are in the Prive collection, the higher end collection of Dior. And Patchouli Imperial is this ambery patchouli. It has a smoke note listed, but Rich Mitch said that it's a very wearable, very accessible. You know, you'll notice a trend here that François Demachy is very good at drawing in broad strokes. Okay, so that's kind of what he does. He takes his paintbrush, and there's not these little details like the original Dior Homme had these amazing little details in them. It felt like true fine French perfumery. Dior Homme Intense feels like that was taken and, you know, drawn with the brush amped up to a size 100. You know, so you're not getting the little details. You're getting these big, broad strokes. It's very easy for the common man to go, oh, I get it, you know, or, oh, I smell that. And, you know, they give 1, 2, 3 notes and that's that. And it's very accessible is the word that comes to mind. Very accessible, very wearable, very, I don't want to say simple because there are some complexities to some of these, but nothing that I would think maybe a rookie perfume lover, let's say, wouldn't have an easy time kind of breaking down and understanding. And apparently that's what Patchouli Imperial is. It's an ambery, soft, very accessible patchouli. Which for me, even though I can tell from wearing it to bed once that this is a very well done patchouli, would I go buy a bottle at Dior Prive prices when I have so many patchoulis? I just bought Patchouli Antique for 35 bucks for 100 ml. You know, is it worth spending $200, $300, $400 on a bottle of Patchouli Imperial? For me, probably not. But if you're a patchouli lover, that's one to put on your list. That was done in 2018, or I'm sorry, that must have been the reform. I'm not sure when the original Patchouli Imperial was done, to be honest with you. Let's see if I can find it real quick. 2011. So 2011 was the original, which is patchouli, sandalwood, amber, cedar, and some citrus. Dior Homme Intense is really pushing. It's beautiful. Okay. Now we're going to go to Cuir Cannage, okay? And Cuir Cannage is basically his take on Cuir de Russie, in my opinion. I have 2 10 ml decants of this, thanks to Moudessir from Base Notes, my Base Notes brother. And this also uses a beautiful iris accord, just like the Dior Homme line. So Dior obviously has, you know, access to top-notch iris because the ingredients here smell amazing. This smells very high quality, and it smells like the ingredients are top-notch, okay? But in the same vein, in the same, you know, thought process or creation process as I was saying, Dior Homme Intense is big brush strokes. This is huge brush strokes. This is a take on Cuir de Russie that makes it much simpler and easier to wear. You still get the gist of a Russian leather. You know, you get the leather, you get the iris, you definitely get the birch. And there are some florals in the top amped up. Fragrantica says orange blossom and ylang, which I know there's a big ylang in the EDP version of Cuir de Russie. So obviously they're kind of playing off of each other. The Dior is kind of taking some cues from the Chanel, let's say, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, Chanel in many ways is like a trailblazer in the industry when it comes to stuff like that. Excuse me whilst I hydrate. Duck. Okay, now we're going to go to another Dior Prive, which I do not have a full bottle of. This came out in 2010. So again, early in his reign. And and that is Mitza. Now, this is another one that's very hard for me to get in Texas. I had to have someone send me a decant, and I like this fragrance, but I don't like it enough to get a full bottle. It's a spicy ambery fragrance is what it is, with honey and incense, which you would think is right up my alley, and it is. It's a very well done amber. The labdanum in here is beautiful, along with the rose note. For some reason, for the first 15 minutes, I get this Amouage Fate Man association, and I don't know why. I'm the only one that ever has said that. Maybe it's the combination of cardamom and coriander and cinnamon with the ambery notes. But this is a great fragrance. I just wish they made it more accessible. You know, I don't like when brands make things hard to get, and only having it in France kind of turns me off. So I'm happy with the decant. I probably won't refill this once this is gone. That's Mitza. And then we're going to go to a full bottle, which I wish I had a full bottle of Cuir Cannage or Mitza over this, because this is very hard for me to wear. Very, very sweet. And that's Feve Delicieuse. This is a tonka bean perfume. And I struggle with tonka perfumes. Even Guerlain's Tonka Imperial, which I have a full bottle of in the older presentation, it just, I don't, maybe I'm anosmic to tonka in some way because I don't appreciate it. And, you know, the sweetness really hits me in those fragrances. It just smells like a sweet, stickly blob to me. You know, it says all these notes in Fragrantica: lavender, mint, cherry, freesia, caramel, vanilla. I just get this blob of just sweetness in Feve Delicieuse. Now, I do have the reformulated version from 2018. So, with the CD kind of together. So maybe the older bottles are better done. But, like, it's got leather, sandalwood, cedar, all this stuff I wish I could smell. I can't. I just get this sweet blob. And so have a full bottle because I heard it was going to be discontinued, and I ran out and grabbed this, and I almost wish I didn't, but at least it's there for reference. And then one that I wish I had a full bottle of rather than Feve is a fragrance called Santol Noir. This is a little 20 or 30 ml decant. I can't remember. But I love this fragrance. Again, very simple composition according to Parfumo. Sandalwood, ambrette, and Turkish rose. So again, they obviously have high quality ambrette and iris from this. So they use the iris in Cuir Cannage, and it smells like they use the ambrette from Dior Homme Intense in Santol Noir. And, you know, he knows one thing about Demachy, he makes a great sandalwood note. So even though I'm sure there's not any Mysore sandalwood in this or anything, it smells very high quality, but this is made for the Arabic market. It also has a beautiful Turkish rose note in this. But the power of this is really, really strong. If you like strong, powerful perfumes, check out Santol Noir. I wish I had a full bottle. I love this fragrance. If you also like Serge Lutens Santal Majuscule, check this one out. They are cousins. They're directly related. Okay, probably my favorite Prive coming up next, and that is Leather Oud. Again, I have the reformulated version, but to me, this is a very good reformulation. I wish I had an older bottle, but as soon as I heard this was discontinued, I just ran out and bought one. I just said, give me what I can get. I didn't want to have to pay $500, you know, for something I could get for $190 at the time or whatever it was. This is a tester that I bought, and I think it's a 20, let's see. Yeah, it's a 2018. So this is the first year they did the reformulation, I believe. But this is an amazing take on oud and leather. This came out in 2010 as well, reformulated. The new one has a sand note listed in the base that's very strange. If you can't afford leather oud and you just want to get something that's in the ballpark for a good price, check out Jacques Bogart One Man Show Oud Edition. they definitely share. You know, that's much more synthetic and a little bit more harsh. This is a little bit more smooth. And the materials are much better made here, obviously. They better be for hundreds of dollars, whereas at Bogart's 15 bucks. But I love this fragrance. This is probably my favorite Prive, along with Santol Noir and Cuir Cannage. So if I could pick 2 full bottles of the Prive line, I would do Santol Noir and Cuir Cannage. I've never smelled Spice Blend. That's on my list. But from the sound of it, I don't know if it's going to be full bottle worthy, but I will check it out. Some of the other ones that I have smelled are complete shite. Holy Peony, and that's the problem with Demachy. I think that's what kind of got him in trouble, is early on he was releasing stuff like this, which I can't believe the perfumer that released Leather Oud released Holy Peony. You know, it just boggles the mind, honestly. And you know, that is, I think, what got him in trouble. Is apparently someone told Rich Mitch once that Demachy had pure leeway to create whatever he wanted in the Prive line. The designers, he had to kind of create more stuff that was mass appealing, but the Prives were his baby to do whatever he wanted with. If that's true, the last couple years of Prive releases, Eden Rock and all that crap, I think that's what ultimately sunk him, if they pushed him out the door to let Francis Kirkjohn in. Okay, now another designer that came out that's discontinued, I believe. And this is a very bright leather. If you want a leather to wear like in the summer, this is actually a very good perfume for a designer. It's called Fendi pour Homme. This is the EDT. They also have a fragrance called Fendi Assoluto, which adds this oud note, and it makes it a little bit more darker. As far as Fendi, the EDT, the 50 ml versus the 100 ml that I have, you can see the juice color is much thicker on the Assoluto. This came out in 2012. This came out in 2014, 2 years later, like a flanker. So apparently François Demachy created this with Delphine Lebeau and Benoit Lapauza. There are no perfumers listed for the flanker. I'm guessing it's the same group, but I honestly don't know, so I put it in here anyways. But what they created is basically this fresh take on a leather with some aromatic woody undertones, if you will. So the leather is here. It's a designer leather, though. It's not like, you know, some of my favorite leathers, which one is coming up at the end of the video. But if you want a very accessible, maybe like a starter leather, you don't want something that's gonna put people off, or, you know, you want something a little bit more wearable just every day, this would be a great everyday leather, because you could wear this when it's hot, because it has some fresh facets to it. There's some citruses and pink pepper and stuff like that that sprightens it up. There's some cardamom. You know, I think Lanois de l'Homme was popular when this came out in 2012. So it has that kind of feel to it, but with a leather undertone, if you will. And there is this strange fresh marine note, almost like they put a drop of cologne in here, which I don't actually like, but I can appreciate the blend. And usually when you see 3 perfumers, you know, no one kind of takes charge, and it just kind of turns into just a, like Paco Rabanne's Phantom was the 3 perfumers, and it's just kind of blah, mass appealing. This is a pretty well done perfume trio creation. And the flanker I like even more because it's darker. It adds that oud note, which was popular in 2014. And it also adds this vetiver and a Papinac, so it's a little bit more resinous, and it's you know, that vetiver makes it very masculine, which I like. I think there's also a patchouli note in this to kind of round everything out. So that is Fendi Assoluto. If you can find this one, that's probably the one I would go with. But they're both discontinued and getting harder and harder to find. Okay, so going back to 2007, again, another LVMH. So by the way, LVMH distributes Fendi fragrances, they distribute Dior fragrances, and they distribute Aqua de Parfum fragrances. And so another perfume he worked on, this time with Alberto Morillas in 2007, that I have in my collection is called Aqua de Parma Colonia Intensa. Now, this is a style fragrance that I don't care as much for. It's a cologne style fragrance. So it's very citrus heavy, it's very bright, it's very airy. You know, when it's 100 degrees, this is the stuff you're supposed to wear. Although I would much rather wear this, to be honest with you, and say, if you don't like it, oh well, too bad. But I will sometimes do the right thing and wear stuff like this just because, you know, it's very bright. It's a beautiful Neroli note. Someone mentioned that they're looking for Neroli perfumes. I'll try to do a top 10 Neroli fragrances one day. This has a beautiful Neroli note in it. It's got ginger. There's a lot of freshness to it. But what makes it intensa, as the Italians would say, intensa, is there's some myrrh and leather and benzoin and some heavier materials underneath, which I like. Kind of a similar idea with something like this, where there's some citruses and musk and freshness at the top, but there's some resinous, you know, there's civet underneath here. Here there's myrrh and leather and benzoin and patchouli, but it's still very, very airy and wearable when it's hot. Not my favorite style. I just don't like these cologne fragrances as much. It's just not me. I don't appreciate them as much. But he did have a hand in that, I think, a couple years before he took on the full-time perfumer job at to be the in-house perfumer at Dior, is what I was trying to say. Okay, so now we are going to move on to, we're going to go back in time, and we're going to go back to the year 1990, and this is when he was working with Jacques Polge. And actually, he's credited with working with Jacques Polge on two of my favorite masculine Chanel designers. And this one is called Ēgoïste. Beautiful ad campaign with this one, where if you've never seen it, look it up. The women are like on different floors of this old school Italian looking house, and they open up the windows, the shutters that open old school style, and they'd stick their head out and go, Ēgoïste, Ēgoïste. They were yelling it, you know, at the guy walking. Ēgoïste, I think, is supposed to mean like narcissist, if I'm not mistaken, which is a pretty brave thing to name your perfume, almost like a narcissist, you know, a guy that's full of himself. But the ad campaign, of course, showed the women loving it. And this is one of the best designer sandalwoods. I mean, that's all you can say about it. There is a beautiful rose note that tends to peek through. I put this in my rose perfume list the other day, too. But sandalwood is the star of the show, with lovely Chanel citruses in the top. Most people say they would wear this in the winter. I wear this all year round. There's a nice tobacco note in this too, by the way, but it's not a tobacco fragrance, obviously. It's a sandalwood fragrance that has some hints of tobacco to round everything out. And François Demachy and Jacques Polge gets the credit. And again, this goes back to the dichotomy of François Demachy. Half of you, or when I say you, I really mean me, half of me wants to really talk down about him for what he's done, you know, taking reformulations and taking someone's work and riffing off of it and creating stuff like this, and that's what he's good at. But then half of me wants to give him some praise for working with Jacques Polge and creating stuff like this, and the one that's coming at the end. If you know his other work for Chanel in the 80s, you know what's coming. And so if it's true that this was a partnership between François Demachy and Jacques Polge, then you have to give him massive credit. Jacques Polge is the one that always gets the recognition and gets the credit, right? But if it really was a duo, and if there was some duality in creating these perfumes, Demachy deserves a lot of credit for creating something like this. There is another fragrance from Geo F. Trumper called Sandalwood Cologne. If you like this scent profile, this DNA, Ēgoïste, the original, not the platinum. The platinum is completely different. Ēgoïste platinum is almost like Chanel's take on a green Irish tweed, you know, which was popular at the time with cool water and all that stuff. But if you like the regular Ēgoïste, check out Trumper's Sandalwood Cologne. Amazing, amazing. These two are kind of two peas in a pod. They're cousins, just like I said. Santol Noir and Santal Majuscule by Serge Lutens are cousins. So, that is Ēgoïste from 1990. And then we are going to go to the year 2012. So this is a couple years after he took over Dior as the in-house perfumer. And he did it again. He riffed on a fragrance and created a flanker. And he created an amazing fragrance. So again, the duality of loving and hating him are just, you can't help yourself. This is Sauvage Parfum. I actually don't like Sauvage. I have a bottle. I didn't want to grab it because it takes me a long time putting everything away and taking it all out. But Sauvage Parfum, I love compared to Sauvage. This is the vintage version from 2012, which you can't get anymore. Now they sell the 2017 version, they call it, which doesn't have the Somalian myrrh. It has the elemi, so they replaced the myrrh with elemi, and I feel like they amped up the synthetics in the 2017 version because that one really screams. It's a screamer. Just like Dior Homme Intense to me is a screamer. It lasts and lasts and lasts. Only synthetics can give you that kind of projection and, you know, reach. Naturals don't do that. But this is also a very simple breakdown, okay? Simplicity is kind of key with Demachy, you're noticing. Calabrian bergamot, Somalian myrrh, and Haitian vetiver. Those are the three notes in this. Basically, it's a three-note breakdown. But it's so classy, and it's so masculine and so well done. And you know, if you wanted something as a, you know, you want to wear something day in and day out, that's just a fantastic creation that will make you smell a little mysterious, a little dark, a little bit different than everyone else, but also keep your interest as a perfume lover. Check this out. Sauvage Parfum is an amazing fragrance. It lasts forever. And I'm so glad to have a 200 ml bottle. This is a 2016 bottle, 6W01, right before they reformulated it the very next year. So 200 ml should last me for a long time. You can tell by the label. The label is black here. The new one is silver around the inside of the label, around the writing. So Sauvage Parfum, again, it's the exact same story. It's the exact same story as Dior Homme. Exact same story. He did it with Dior Homme, Sauvage Parfum. And both of these are amazing fragrances. And then he did it again with Fahrenheit. So you can't give him credit for the original Fahrenheit. He didn't create Fahrenheit, but he took over a house where Fahrenheit was one of the biggest masculine releases of all time. I mean, it was a huge hit in the late 80s. And he created a couple flankers. One is Les Parfums, which came out in 2014. This is very accessible, again, very wearable. You know, it has some sweetness to it. It has some, it has this bourbon vanilla, which I'm very torn on because I love the original Fahrenheit. And there's no place for vanilla in Fahrenheit to me. It's just, it doesn't seem like it mixes, you know? So you get a little bit of that violet leaf gasoline accord, but then it goes away. And then you really get the sweetness. There's this leatheriness underneath with vetiver and stuff like that. But I just think they should have called it something else. I just don't think this should have even been called Fahrenheit. But of course, it has to sell. That's the cage Demachy was put in. LVMH wants sales. How better to sell than to create a parfum version, put it at $200 a bottle for 75 ml. They don't even give you 100 ml. And, you know, all of these concentrations, like Versace did it with Eros. They released Eros, and then a couple years later, you get the EDP, and then you get the Parfum, and then you get the Parfum Intense, and then you get the Parfum Intense Extreme, and it just, I don't really like that, to be honest with you. The old, just normal EDTs would just kill these Parfum, all this Parfum crap. But it's a good fragrance. I'm not saying it's a bad fragrance, and it's completely unisex to me. I don't think it's masculine. Like, the EDT is masculine. This is completely unisex. But he took something, he created a flanker, made a good fragrance, made it very accessible, big brush strokes, easy to wear, easy to understand. And there you go. That is his hallmark. These three right here basically show Demachy's time at Dior in a nutshell. He took older fragrances, which he didn't create, right? He didn't create the original. This was a Rudnitska. This was a Jacques Polge. And this was a, who was this? Jean-Louis Suizac or Michel Almarac? I can't even think of it. But he didn't create the original. And, you know, he's riffing off of it and creating all these flankers. And that's what he actually does well. But at the same time, let me show you one more before we get to his baby, his creation, okay? One more is Fahrenheit Absolute. Now, this is a flanker with oud, as you can see from the notes. I bought a tester. Incense, oud, and myrrh, which he uses myrrh very well, as you see here, right? So this is probably my favorite Fahrenheit flanker. The summer ones are shite. I'm not interested in Fahrenheit 32 or any of that crap. This is an amazing myrrh violet leather fragrance with oud. That's pretty much it, with oud, with Dior's oud, okay? It's dark, it's brooding, you know. It's almost like it's thinking evil thoughts when you wear this. That's what you get. You get this, I think it was Robes 08 who said this is the devil's juice. And I completely understand what he means by that. But I love this fragrance, and they discontinued it, of course. But, so let's go to his baby. So let's go to his creation, okay? Now, I don't have the regular version of this. I don't have the EDP version of this. But I do have the Parfum version of this. And the reason I have the Parfum is there's a very interesting Olabanum Elemi Olabanum note with this Sichuan pepper. So there's this peppery Olabanum with ambroxan, a little bit toned down from the EDT. Now, so Sauvage he created the original EDT, he created the EDP, he created the Parfum, and his last fragrance, if I'm not mistaken, actually it's not his last, because he did Dior Homme Cologne. Even though François Demachy took over, he created that basically post leaving, he created it. They put his name on the release, even though he's not the in-house perfumer. He created Sauvage Elixir, which I don't think is a bad fragrance because it throws back to this lavender, you know, 80s type thing. People hate on it because it's Sauvage, but I don't think it's a bad fragrance. It's just way overpriced for 60 ml or whatever they're giving you. This is the Parfum. What did they give you in the Parfum? This is a 2020 bottle, by the way. This is a 60 ml bottle, okay? So even the Parfum, they gave you a smaller amount. than the EDT or EDP. But, you know, he didn't put out, this was not an original category. Chanel put out Bleu de Chanel first. Then, of course, Dior followed suit. Now, this is the best-selling men's fragrance, I think, in recent years. I think Sauvage kind of overtook Chanel in sales, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what LVMH cares about. They care about sales. But for the perfume crowd, everyone hates Sauvage. His creation, his baby, that's loved by the masses, the perfume crowd hates for the most part. They think it's boring, synthetic. Actually, it's funny, the way Parfumo describes this is a spicy synthetic fragrance. It's hugely synthetic. But the elemi and musks here smell good. Dior did use some high quality musks apparently, and the elemi olibanum type feel smells good. Whether there's real elemi and olibanum in here, who knows? But they found a way to create this accord that at least made me, I figured I might as well have a blue fragrance since I don't have any. So here you go. It's my blue fragrance. Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the story of François Demachy. Now, the last one I want to show you is something that just really shakes my faith in all of this, okay? Because this is one of my favorite fragrances of all time, hands down. And to have François Demachy's name on it with Jacques Polge, it really makes me second guess everything that I think about François Demachy, okay? And that's this: Chanel's Antaeus. The fact that François Demachy's name is on this fragrance is almost like earth-shattering to me, because everything I believe and everything that I know about François Demachy is challenged with this fragrance. This is an absolutely 100% masculine. It's interesting, it's deep, it's dirty, it's almost like they created it just for me. I mean, it's literally, if I could create a fragrance, it would probably be something like this. And, you know, Jacques Polge gets credit, but Demachy was there. I mean, Demachy was working with Jacques Polge to create this. I mean, what if Demachy created this and Jacques Polge is getting credit for it? It just completely blows the mind of a perfume lover, right? The castoreum in this is some of the greatest castoreum you will smell. There's a beautiful dark rose that just seeps out from the deep when you smell this. The myrrh in the top and the clary sage, and the oak moss in the base. The oak moss and patchouli. And when you smell this, and you realize that this was going for $10 in 1981, or $15, or whatever it is for 100 ml, and you realize where we've gone to stuff like this for $500, you know, you really realize what we've lost in perfumery. And François Demachy is caught up in that story. He's part of it. I mean, he went from Chanel to Dior, and who knows if his career is finished or if he's going to pop back up. But you know, he is a man of two minds. He's a dichotomy. He's very hard to figure out and talk about as a man, because everything I just said about flankers and this, that, or whatever is completely challenged with Antaeus. So that's why I was kind of a little bit hesitant on doing this video, because I didn't know how the words were going to come out. I think I'm happy with how this came out, because I did give him a little bit of a hard time on some things, and I also praised him on others. And, you know, it's his career, no matter what you think of him, is almost like following the trajectory of the perfume industry. I mean, when the perfume industry was into really releasing stuff like this, stuff that I consider some of the greatest fragrances ever put out, he was doing it. And then when they started making them do flankers, he was doing it. And then when they started making them sell, you know, Patchouli Prives for $400 a bottle, he was doing it. And so, you know, it's a trajectory that I want to talk down about him, but I can't, if that makes sense, even though I just have been. When you really think about it, it's really hard to know whether he was really doing some of the things in the Prive line because that was his baby and that's what he wanted to do and it was just a bad call, or whether that's what Dior wanted him to do because they wanted to get the Chinese market, which likes these airier type fragrance. There's so many factors at play, is what I'm saying. It's very hard to judge a man in his career by just the last year or two of his work because of stuff like this. So, you know, this is a masterpiece. This is absolutely a masterpiece, and he had a hand in it. So, as you can see, I'm torn. I don't think I'm going to come to a final conclusion just rambling here, so I'm probably going to end it all here. Not end it all, but end this video here. And let me know what your thoughts are on François Demachy. Let me know if you own some of these fragrances, if you feel the same way that I do, if... you know, if you think I'm completely off kilter, let me know your thoughts. I love seeing your faces and responding, and I appreciate all the support and feedback and you joining me in this journey. Cheers. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tonight. Oh, by the way, if you're going to stick around, I'll see you tonight for an unboxing. All right, everyone have a great day. Bye.